Today on Sane-ish, I am joined by my business partner and dear friend, Sam Schwartz. Sam and I talk every day, but what we don't talk about every day is how Sam and I met. Because the origin story there, I wish was anything else. I wish there were a million trillion reasons that I knew Sam Schwartz other than the one that I do. He lost his cousin, and I say lost as if his cousin, was misplaced, but his cousin Alex was murdered in Parkland, and Alex was Sam's best friend. And like a lot of people who have had people taken from them as a result of gun violence, Sam decided to turn his pain, that tragedy, into action, into advocacy. And he is a force to be reckoned with. He is not someone that you should ever underestimate because Sam, barely 21 years old, was able to get Chuck Schumer to bring gun violence prevention legislation to the floor of the United States Senate. He launched a bus tour around this country to try to flip districts that had flipped from blue to red back to blue. And he is just one of these people that if he puts his mind to it, there's nothing he can't accomplish. But I wanted to bring him on this week in the wake of what happened last week with Charlie Kirk being murdered at the end of a gun. I wanted to bring Sam on to talk about gun violence prevention, to talk about the fact that there are more guns in this country than there are people, to talk about the fact that Republicans will tell you, Charlie Kirk was one of them, that some gun deaths are the price of freedom. And I want to talk to Sam about the human cost. He will often say, and other people who have been touched by gun violence will say that they didn't think it would ever happen to them until it did. And statistically in this country right now, it's not really a matter of if gun violence will come for you, it's when. And I want to talk about that because it's not freedom to not be able to go to the grocery store without wondering, what if I get shot? It's not freedom to sit in a movie theater and wonder, where's the closest emergency exit? Because you're concerned that a shooter might come in. It's not freedom to have to memorize your kids' clothes every day when you drop them off for school, because you know that the parents of children who were slaughtered in Sandy Hook and Uvalde, etc., were only able to identify their children because of the clothes they were wearing. This is not freedom. Gun deaths are not the price of freedom. And what happened to Charlie Kirk is not okay. It's a reality that some want us to have to accept, and it is a reality that Sam Schwartz's family has to accept, and it is a reality that I steadfastly refuse to accept. Sam and I have worked together to try and make the change we seek. We started a media network called the Siren. I'm so proud of it, and I'm so proud to be partnered with Sam Schwartz. And I'm so glad that he is here to talk about this very difficult subject with me today. But before we dive in, I want to talk about two of the partners who've made this podcast possible. I've shared with you before how much I love to care for my plants and trees. Well, guess what? Fall is planting season, and there are many plants and trees that actually do better when planted this time of year. But you have to know where to start. That's why I love fastgrowingtrees.com. It doesn't matter if you live in the sunshine or a colder climate, their plant experts can help you find the perfect fit for your space. Fast Growing Trees makes it easy to get your dream yard. Order online and get your plants delivered directly to your door in just a few days without ever leaving home. I mean, that's pretty awesome, right? Their Alive and Thrive guarantee ensures your plants arrive happy and healthy. And I have 2 plants coming hopefully this week. I think so. And I am so freaking excited. I think it's a fiddle leaf fig and a Norfolk Island pine. I'm extremely excited. Big yard, small yard, no yard. They've got over 6,000 plants to fit any space, from indoor plants to fruit trees to full-sized privacy trees and more. I need the privacy trees, believe me, friends. I got some flat earther neighbors, no lie. This fall, they have the best deals for your yard, up to half off on select plants and other deals. And Sane-ish listeners get 15% off their first purchase when visiting fastgrowingtrees.com/Sanish and using the code Sanish at checkout. That's 15% off at fastgrowingtrees.com/Sanish, SANEISH, and using the code Sanish, again, SANEISH at checkout. Offer is valid for a limited time. Terms and conditions may apply. Check out the link in the show notes and help support the show. Okay. Let's talk about your online privacy. Every day you see more and more bogus spam-like scam emails arriving in your inbox. And if you take a minute to think about how those places got your information, it's kind of terrifying, especially given what I do here. Friends, your info is out there. That's why I've partnered with Incogni. It's helped me to take control of my online privacy by removing my data from all of those shady people search sites, broker databases, etc. Incogni is basically a digital hitman for your data. It hunts down all those shady sites I'm talking about, and poof, your personal info disappears. And you don't have to email anyone, fill out forms, or jump through hoops. They handle the entire data removal process for you. Plus, Incogni doesn't just do that and walk away. They also continue to monitor if your data ever gets put back onto these databases, then request repeated removals until the info is removed, keeping your data yours forever. Best of all, you can cancel anytime, and they offer a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can get it completely risk-free. Right now, you can get 60% off an annual plan by going to incogni.com and using the code JOJO. That's INCOGNI.com/JOJO. Use the code JOJO at checkout. That's code JOJO. Okay, now let's talk to Sam. This is the first time my friend and co-founder of the Siren Network, Sam Schwartz, is on the Sane-ish podcast. Sam, we talk every day. We've talked on many podcasts in the past. We are, as I said up top, co-founders of the Siren Network, which we are going to talk about. First of all, welcome. I'm glad that you're joining me today for a lot of reasons, but I'm not glad, as I talked about in the intro to this episode, for the reason that we have to talk about, or for the reason that I know you. And I've told you this, it's no offense to you. You're a wonderful human being. I've met your family. They're wonderful human beings too. But I know you because of something that happened, a tragedy that happened in your family. Welcome. And do you want to talk about that first in case my audience doesn't know?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thanks for having me on. I can't believe have we ever done a podcast, just us two? I don't think we have.
Yes. You were on
Yeah.
Are You Effing Kidding Me years ago. I recorded
yeah.
it at my ex-husband's house because I was getting very real death threats at the time.
Oh,
And
okay.
I was
Wow.
afraid to go home.
That's
Yeah.
not good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's kind of the reality of today. But for those of you who don't know me, my name is Sam Schwartz. I have been doing politics since I was around 14 years old. What happened to me when I was 14 is that my cousin Alex Schachter was part of the Parkland shooting. He was one of the 17 victims. That was in 2018. He was also 14. He was 6 months older than me. And so really from that day forward, I've really just been involved in the gun violence prevention movement. That's led me to, doing work as a content creator, filming my journey and walking around the halls of Congress, trying to get bills passed, and of course, unsuccessfully, really, to a wide extent. That's how I met Jo, was how I told her that I was going on this bus tour last summer, the Tour to Save Democracy. Spoiler alert, we did not save democracy. It's incredibly at risk right now because of a guy named Donald Trump. But yeah, that's sort of my journey. It's been gun violence prevention activist to, I'm still obviously very passionate about that, but now I just kind of do general work as a creator and more topics beyond gun violence prevention explicitly, and that's led me to working with Jo as a co-founder of the Siren, which is a media network created by creators for I mean, we'll go into more of that later, but that's a little bit more, or that's a little about me, and I'm very happy to be here.
Yeah, and as you know, and as I've said many times and many times publicly, I am so sorry for what happened to your family. It breaks my heart in many ways. It also breaks my heart that with all of your advocacy and your fight, that we are still here.
Yeah.
That not only are we still here, but the Trump administration, Republicans writ large, are pulling us backwards in time, erasing the little progress, which is a shocking thing to say, that we've made since Sandy Hook. But I want to ask you before we, get into everything else, what is it, do you think, about you that in the wake of tragedy, that you didn't just sort of curl up into a ball, that you didn't retreat, that you didn't withdraw, that you decided instead to take action, and not just with gun violence prevention, but with this democracy too? What do you think it is about who you are?
Well, first of all, thank you for the kind words. I think I definitely did curl up into a ball in the very beginning. Like when I first heard about the shooting, my first reaction was to literally do nothing. Like I was 14 years old. I had no idea what had just happened to my family or my cousin. And so, yeah, I kind of shut down for a little bit. I think for like, I don't know how many days, but it was probably around a week. And I remember going to the funeral and seeing how many people were there and hearing about certain politicians not wanting to come to the event, to come to the funeral because the photos weren't allowed. And then when they couldn't have their photo be taken with the families to sort of like tokenize us, they didn't show up. That was like my first experience with like the bullshit. And then as I started learning more, like I remember I went to a CNN town hall that was very shortly after the shooting, and Marco Rubio, I'm sure many of you listening watched that. It
I
was
did.
it was yeah, it was with Marco Rubio, who was at the time the Florida senator, and I watched him tell the families of the victims that he would continue to accept NRA money and that he would not support an assault weapons ban, which just had murdered 17 of his constituents and wounded 17 others. And watching him so callously and cruelly just say that and laugh it off and not commit to doing anything other than just nothing, basically, that I remember enraged me to a point where I was like, I need to do something more than just what I'm doing now, which was, at the time as a 14-year-old was nothing, right? I don't know how many kids should not be doing that work. Let's just start off with that. It should be on the shoulders of the adults to solve the problem so that children should be children. But unfortunately, too many of those Parkland kids, including myself, were kind of thrust into this world very much too soon. So that was my starting point. I remember we went to we had events local to Parkland. I did that with my mom, and of course like other students around the Parkland Palm Beach County area. And then I remember going to DC the first time, and I remember being shocked that actually it's not just Marco Rubio who wanted to not do anything. It was every Republican. Nobody wanted to do anything. So that was my, again, I was like it's like my coming of age and politically of seeing how dysfunctional Congress is in a way that it's not just like we disagree with this. It's we know that this is the right thing, but we won't do it because we're getting tons of money from evil people like the NRA. So that was my entrance into this. And so I think that like I yeah, I hope that answers the question. I think, but like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, I don't know. I've just never been somebody who's willing to just like let the world around me crumble as I see it. I feel like that would be grossly incompetent and negligent. So,
Which is fascinating because I mean, for a lot of reasons, and there's going to be a lot of diagnoses of what led the shooter in the Charlie Kirk murder. There's lots of speculation right now. We don't know definitively. There's lots of speculation coming from lots of people. Much of it is not vetted, but there have been conversations that are valid about some young men in your generation, Gen Z, and younger men, Gen Alpha. But this particular person is Gen Z, about sort of like this idea that it's like a nihilistic view, right? We're like, it doesn't matter. They don't
Yeah.
care. They're not going to impact any change. There's nothing better coming. There's no point to any of this. And so chaos for chaos's sake, whatever. But there are many people, my point is, there are many young men, and my son's at the tail end of your generation. He's 16, that don't care, that don't think that they either can or want to actually make change towards creating a better future, a better reality. I mean, can we just talk about that briefly? Because this is something that does not get talked about enough. And maybe if coming out of this tragedy, which it is, and I don't have to love Charlie Kirk to say that, maybe that kind of conversation can be a good thing. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that the outcome to this, just like any mass shooting, can have a good outcome. Like that was certainly what we wanted Parkland to be. We wanted it to be obviously something that was horrible that we never in our wildest imaginations could have ever thought that would happen to us, but we wanted there to be a silver lining to those kids and the teachers that were killed in Parkland. And so like we were really trying, and we still are really trying right after to have an assault weapons ban, to have a universal background checks law be passed, to have red flag laws be passed. We were successful in Florida. We raised the age from 18 to 21 to buy an AR-15. And I think Rick Scott wanted to roll that back at some point.
Yeah.
And so, but like, there can be good that comes out of this, right? So that's what I'm saying. Like my first reaction when hearing about Charlie Kirk was like, holy shit, this was a school shooting, right? This was a school shooting. It wasn't just an assassination, which it was. It wasn't just political violence, which it was. It was a school shooting at a college campus on an open carry state in which 2,000 to 3,000 children basically watch someone get shot in front of them brutally, execution style, right? So like that's the reality again that we're subjecting our kids to. And I see a lot of people on both sides kind of throwing their hands up and going, I won't condemn this, and this is the way it is. And like this is a part of a larger problem here. And I think we're kind of missing the point here, which is like this is about gun violence. Like the people, when we're living in this age right now where people are so venomously hostile towards one another, they have the means to go carry something like this out because they have the ability to go to the store down the street and buy an AR-15 and not have to do a background check. And you could be literally 18 in some scenarios and just waltz on to, and carry this out, right? So that's like the world in which Charlie Kirk and MAGA has enabled for so long, right? It's like the world that we were telling people, this can happen to you. And I keep going back to that quote of Charlie Kirk saying over and over and over again that some deaths are just worth it in order to have the Second Amendment. And I just don't think that he thought he was going to be one of those deaths, right? I think if you went back and asked him, well, what if you're one of those deaths, right? I think that's what you have to start saying to these people who are still not in agreement with us on this issue. Are you willing to have your life be sacrificed to have a law from 250 years ago be in existence still? And if they say yes, I think they're bullshitting. I really do. I think they cannot be serious to say that.
Well, you and I have had many conversations on this issue, and unfortunately, because of the reality they want us to accept, I've had many conversations with other people who are survivors on this issue. And one consistent through line is that you've all said no one thinks that this is going to impact them. No one thinks that gun violence is going to come for them, right? No one thinks that it'll be someone they love or in their town or that it will be them, right? Until it happens. And we saw this with a Democrat from Maine, Dan Golden, I think. Yep. Is that his name? Where until there was a mass shooting in his backyard, he was opposed to gun violence prevention legislation, but even owned that. And he's since whatever. But point being,
Golden is his name, I think.
Golden, right. Charlie Kirk did say that. And again, we're not saying or suggesting that this is some kind of karmic retribution, but he did say that some gun deaths are the price of freedom. And when he said it, I remember asking him, whose child is expendable? Whose mother, whose father, whose brother are you expendable? Because when you say something like that, that is what you're saying. You're saying that some lives, they did this with COVID too, some lives are expendable. And once it impacts them or impacts someone they love, it changes the way they see things. But what MAGA and Republicans have done in the wake of his murder, they're not having the conversation about the guns. They're having the conversation about how the left, they're co-opting all of this, how it's the left that's been stoking extrajudicial violence, celebrating murder, because they're using words like fascist and Nazi. By the way, the two people who call Donald Trump a Nazi, one is his vice president, and the other one's his Secretary of Health and Human Services. So let's just be real here. But they're not talking about the guns. You can never, ever talk about the guns, but they'll blame everything under the sun, from the pot to the porn to the video games to doors with too many locks to too many doors, too few doors, to mental health medicines, to mental health itself. But they won't do anything about any of that. But they also will not talk about the guns. They just won't have that conversation. To your point, they'd refuse.
The thing that I find so hilariously ironic about this whole thing is there's nothing hilarious about it, first of all, but the fact that these people, it's that old ad, or not an ad, was that it was like a satirical clip from, I don't know, someone in Germany, right, of Nazis hanging up Nazi posters, wearing an SS uniform, and then someone on the street goes, "Hey, Nazi," and the guy goes, "Who are you calling a Nazi? I'm not a Nazi. Why are you calling me a Nazi?" And he's wearing like a total like uniform. That's what these people are doing right now. Like,
Yeah.
they're taking textbook page after textbook page after lesson from fascists and from Nazis. And then as soon as someone on the left says, "Hey man, this is authoritarian, this is fascistic," they go, "What are you talking about? How dare you say that?" Like,
Right.
it defies all logic. And so, like, I'm not saying that in any world any of this is justified at all. Charlie Kirk is a victim, like, totally. His mindset, he was a victim to be radicalized into believing that by someone before him, probably Rush Limbaugh, right, told him that that was the right thing, and he's a victim here, right? Like, it kind of starts at the top. Really, the people that are the problem are our elected officials, who for decades and decades and decades have been bankrolled by the NRA and Republican billionaires into thinking that if we push the narrative that more guns equals we are more safer, that's all we need to do. And at this point, it is completely untenable. It defies all logic. Republicans love to call themselves the party of the data and facts and statistics and facts over your feelings. Well, like, in our case, we have the data and the statistics, and we have the facts, and they have the feelings here. Like, in every single blue state, like California, like Massachusetts, where I'm currently in right now, they've exacted some of the strictest gun safety laws in the country.
Jersey.
And because of that, they have the lowest gun deaths in the nation, right? And so, like, there is correlation and causation here, right? Like, we have data point after data point that shows in 1994, when Bill Clinton passed an assault weapons ban, the amount of mass shootings dramatically fell. And when it expired under Republican President George W. Bush, mass shootings went right back up, right? In all of the states that Donald Trump is sending the National Guard to, he won't send the National Guard to Republican states that have extraordinarily higher amounts of gun crimes, right? The highest states, the states that have the highest amounts of murder and crime are Republican states, in part because they don't have any sort of gun safety laws. Right. I think that it's completely laughable. And I just think that, like, Charlie Kirk helped to design this world. And I think it's just a damn tragedy that he was a victim of the world that he helped to create.
Yeah, I mean, if there's ever a data point in my mind to dismantle their argument about more guns, good guy with gun argument, it's Uvalde, because they were armed to the teeth. The police response was they had tactical gear. They had weapons that can do massive damage, shields, everything. And they still stood in the hallway for, I think, was it an hour? Am I crazy?
It was, I'm pretty sure it was an hour. And it was 376 officers from every single branch of law enforcement, from city police officers to the FBI to Homeland Security. Every single person was there. There's even a father whose child was murdered in that school, who they would not let go in there. Okay. So, like, that's what we're talking about here. And even in Parkland, Our school resource officer in Parkland, he fucking went and hid behind a statue, or not a statue,
Yeah.
a column, to shield himself, because the damage that one lone gunman can do with one AR-15
Yeah.
makes police officers scared to go. And I don't blame them. First of all, I don't
No.
blame them. But like, another foil to this whole statement that good guys with guns equals we're all safe. Charlie Kirk had 10 armed security guards, right?
Yeah.
Like, in a world, in a country in which, in Utah, an open carry state, on an open carry campus with 10 security guards, and Charlie Kirk has been telling all these kids to have guns, he should have been the safest in the world. Where he was, in the middle of all those kids who presumably have the right to have their guns in an open carry state, in an open carry camp, he should have been the safest ever, and he
Yeah.
was still a victim of gun violence. So I think this notion of just, if everyone has a gun, we're all safer, is complete horseshit.
Yeah.
Horseshit.
Yeah. It is horseshit, and it's horseshit that they have been very successful at selling, right? They have been able to sell this horseshit to the extent that there are more guns in this country than people, right? And I want to talk about, I want to pivot to why they have been so much, they're more successful, let's say, and I hate using that word because what they're doing in many cases is pure evil, at setting the narrative and making us have to chase it so that we can dismantle it, so that we can disprove it, so that we can have a rational conversation based in reality, not in gaslighting, propagandizing bullshit. But one of the reasons you and I co-founded the Siren Network speaks to this very thing. So can we talk about that?
Yeah.
Can you? Yeah, let's talk about that.
So basically, what Joe was starting to say is that if Republicans, right this second, tomorrow, in a month, whenever they want, if they wanted to go out there and launch a new talking point that actually the sky is red and water is purple, they could do that, and you'd have a good majority of their base on cue, believing them in a matter of 2 seconds. Not only believing them, but then pushing the message out. Okay, and that's because Republicans, for 4 decades, have been building up a social media, really media apparatus that has now extended to social media over the last 10 years. When Republicans lose elections, they invest billions of dollars into buying up local newspapers and syndicating them into right-wing shithole information zones. They fund creators. They fund people like Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA. They fund people like Ben Shapiro and Daily Wire. And we haven't done that on the left. We haven't done that to the point of, we get to 2024 and the largest creators on social media are Republicans, are MAGA accounts. There's this very, very famous Media Matters graphic that maybe we can put up on screen here, of a bunch of blue and red bubbles, except there's way more big red bubbles than they are little blue bubbles, and the big red bubbles are Republican MAGA accounts. And Joe is one of those accounts on there, but she is a little blue one compared to Joe Rogan with 50 million followers, right? So like, that's what we're happening. For every Joe, they have 100 more larger MAGA creators, right? So like, that's sort of the problem here. So even if I heard a lot of people after the election trashing Kamala Harris's economic plan and trashing her messaging and social media game, and like, that's fine. Say whatever you want. Even if Kamala Harris had the perfect strategy crafted by the gods, the political democratic strategist gods, and handed to her on a silver platter, we still would have lost, because we don't have the tools to actually get the message across to Americans. And so that's why we started the Siren, is because the reality is we need more creators, we need bigger creators on the left, we need more media networks to actually distribute our message to Americans who are just not seeing what we have to say. Instead, they're seeing things like Joe Biden is a clone, he's a robot, Kamala Harris is stupid, and Trump was an FBI informant. Like, that's what they're seeing. And it's not that they just will automatically believe anything stupid, right? It's that they're not seeing a counter argument. They're not seeing what we have to say, because we don't have the apparatus out there. So like, that's why we started the Siren, so that we can, have more of an ecosystem on the left to actually counter what people like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and Rush Limbaugh, right? All these people have built for decades and decades and decades, and we haven't done it to the extent that we need to. Midas Touch exists, Bulwark exists, PodSave, they're incredible, but we need 10 Midas touch. We need 100 Midas, right? We need 100 bulwarks, and we don't. We have a couple of really great people, and we need way more creators on the left.
Yeah, because not only is legacy media, mainstream media not meeting this moment, they're not really designed to meet this moment because the country has moved away from traditional means of consuming information, right? It is very interesting how influential, somebody with a microphone like a Joe Rogan, or a Tim Pool, or a Charlie Kirk, or a Ben Shapiro can be, because people are going to them, but also the machinery is churning that stuff out and putting it in for you everywhere, all the algorithms, etc. And the reason the algorithms are rife with that stuff is because they're utilizing it more, because there are
Yeah.
more of them, right? And so the Siren was created, and we have how many shows now, Sam? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
We have 8
8
shows.
shows. We have 8 shows. Sam has one, with Micah Irfan. Did I say that right?
Irfan, yep, that's right.
Irfan, called America Matters. We have 8 different shows with a wide variety of perspectives,
Including one with Harry Dunn that's launching tomorrow on Tuesday.
which we're so excited. You're going to hear that first here, friends. That is called Pores and Perspectives. Harry Dunn is, oh my God. Oh, I love Harry so much. He's this great big giant teddy bear.
Incredible.
And again, I wish I knew Harry for 10 million other reasons than the one I do.
Yeah.
But not only are we building the Siren so that we have more creators in this, so to speak, army out there, right? And a network that is distributing their stuff, but we also want to partner with and collaborate with the networks that do exist, so that we're truly lifting all boats.
Absolutely.
And truly forcing these algorithms to feed what we're saying, which is the truth, which is decency, which is democracy, which is true freedom. It is we're trying to advocate for a world that respects people's fundamental human rights, everything that is at stake right now. That is why we built the Siren, but there's so many networks out there that are both building now and that are established that we need to work with, that can't be siloed in this moment.
Something that Republicans will do, and Joe and I have spent a lot of time actually just studying and watching their content, which has not been fun to say the least. It sucks, but it's good to do because it shows you like what they're doing, and honestly, like modeling it on the left is what we actually have to do. And something they do is that they'll work with anyone, anywhere, anytime. It'll even be a sex offender criminal like Donald Trump, right? It'll be anybody. No, despite the accusations or their character, they'll work with anyone. And I'm not saying that we have to start working with criminals. We should not, but we do have to work together more. And that's something that I would like to see more on the left, is more of these networks that exist out there working together. And that does already exist. I'm saying that we have to do more of it. On the topic of the legacy media not meeting this moment, a big thing is that when you look at legacy media, like people say CNN and MSNBC are left-leaning organizations. And if you ask the president of those organizations what their political affiliation is, they would say a million times over, we are an independent organization. We do not have a political affiliation, because if they do say we're a left-leaning organization, that's really bad for their bottom dollar, right? So they can't actually go out there and say it. So what they do is they do the both sides thing, right? And we all know it. It's the Donald Trump said that he was going to send the military to Chicago, but on the other hand, here's Scott Jennings? Here's Scott Jennings to tell you about maybe why that's okay and how Joe Biden actually is the problem here, right? So they do the both sides thing. Yep. And what Republicans do on Fox News in particular, which is the most watched cable show in the country, they don't do that. They don't both sides it. It's Jesse Waters saying we're in a civil war, and that's it. There is no left-leaning opinion. I guess maybe Jessica Tarlov on the 5 would be it, right? But like, there's no outlets on the right that say, "Oh, we're unbiased, we're unpolitical." They are MAGA, ultra MAGA, conservative, groypers like Nick Fuentes, which are neo-Nazis. That's it. And but on the left, we have a bunch of people who have journalistic integrity, which is good. But we have journalistic integrity, and we have both sides. Here's the other angle that you're missing, and that's led to this moment right now. So that's why we need more media networks on the left who are not going to be like, well, Donald Trump said this, but then here's why he said it, and here's what he meant. Like, we're done with that shit. That has led us to this moment.
Yeah, and I think the American people, their appetite for consuming and their information coming from sources that it's like, let's talk about the planet Earth. On one side, you have the people over here who know that planet Earth is round. Then over here, you have the flat earthers. Let's discuss. It's
Yeah.
like, you have a media, or you have a channel that puts Jillian Michaels on there who
Yeah.
talks about how slavery wasn't really that bad, and then that it wasn't the white people who were to blame, and they platform
Yep.
that stuff in the interest of looking non-biased,
Yep.
and that's
That's
bullshit,
exactly right.
right? Like, because what we've seen with what has happened to Donald Trump is that you legitimize the crazy, you legitimize the fringe, and what's happened, and we'll close with this, the Republican Party, is that the fringe is now mainstream. Brian
Right.
Kilmeade said on the most watched mainstream media news show in America, he said that unhoused, he didn't use that word, that homeless people, many of them, who have, mental health issues,
Many of
should
them
be
are
euthanized.
veterans, by the way.
Many of whom are veterans, by the way. Yes, many 30,000 homeless or unhoused are veterans in this country right now. He said that they should be euthanized. He said that they should get a lethal shot. He said we should just kill them.
Yeah.
This is not fringe anymore, friends. These are not. Charlie Kirk, he made fun of Paul Pelosi when he was hurt. He mocked the death of George Floyd. He said things like, "I will not celebrate. I will not mourn." Right? This is not fringe. This is mainstream. And we have to meet the moment by pushing back against this, because it has infected the entire party. It's not just on the periphery anymore.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I know we have to end soon, so I think for maybe a closing statement, we should just say that I think political violence in every single form has got to be condemned. I see a lot of people on the left saying he got what he deserved, and I really have to disagree, because that kind of sentiment, what's saying that you won't be next, right? What's saying someone, if you decide that they deserve to be killed, what's saying that someone isn't going to decide that right? That the same thing should happen to you. So we just have to come out and lower the temperature and say, no matter our differences, we got to come together. There's got to be a better way forward. All gun violence is horrible, not if it's someone that we don't like. Gun violence isn't good if it's someone we don't like. It's bad all the time. So that's what I want to leave everyone off with. Make sure to follow the Siren, where we post content every day, right, Joe?
Yeah.
We'll have lots more to say on there.
And this podcast, the Sane podcast, this is also breaking news, will be moving to the Siren Network, so that you don't have to do anything different in terms of where you listen or watch. It'll still be on YouTube. It'll still be on all your podcast streaming, or whatever they call that. I don't have the technological terms for that. I'm 51 and I'm basically like an old lady, but it'll be all those places. But it'll also be helmed on the Siren Network, which is helmed on Substack, which is where you can find all these other shows like Sam's show, and we have Joe Galena from Called Activism, and we have Joel Rubin, and we have Harry Dunn. And we have another show that will be dropping, I think, this week, that we're not ready to announce just yet, but it has another huge name on the left joining our ranks, and we're very excited for that. But we
are growing in size.
Yeah, and it's it's one foot in front of the other. But I'll just say this last part, Sam, before we do actually go. Yeah. It's community building too, right? This is what we've seen in the wake of what happened to Charlie Kirk has worried me greatly about this disconnect that is permeating American society, the fabric of who we are and how we interact with each other. Because for a lot of people, it wasn't about a human being at all, right? For a lot of people, there's the online world where this is not real. And they can say things like his children are better off, or he got what he deserved. But at the end of the day, they wouldn't say that about somebody who was at their son's soccer game. They wouldn't say that about, someone, their neighbor. They wouldn't say that about, a person that they walk by on the street, someone they wave to, another parent in the pickup line, because they've been disconnected from the humanity of all of this. And
because social media isn't real life.
Correct. But what real community building does, what the Siren is aiming to do, what I'm aiming to do, both with my content on social media platforms, but here on this podcast, is to build a community of people who are reconnected to that humanity. There is, at the end of the day, more more that we have in common than we don't. We all kind of want the same
Absolutely.
fundamental things, and we need to be reminded of that. So conversations like these, interactions with the communities that we're building, that I believe is how you make the change that you seek, and
Yeah.
so that people don't feel disconnected from each
Yeah.
other.
I'm a huge proponent of that. I don't want to talk too much. I know we have to end, but like I'm a huge proponent of that. Matt, you would be surprised. People on the right, MAGA, would agree with liberals on pretty much everything. If you said just basic human rights, I think they would agree with you. It's just that they've been led astray by
Yeah.
bad actors. Like the best example, and this is the last thing I'll say, is that 90% of Americans agree that universal background checks are necessary. That's common ground. That's a really, really great development that we maybe would not have. We don't really think that way because we have to just attack the other side, attack right. And so I think like we can definitely attack Donald Trump. He's maybe far gone. He's the leader of this, but like I think that maybe we should extend a hand to MAGA who might be feeling the effects of tariffs and all of this Trump bullshit and be like, here's the alternative viewpoint and here's what our vision of America looks like.
Yeah, agreed. Amen. Well, thank you, Sam. As always, yeah, thank you for your partnership on the Siren, and thank you for coming on to talk about this today. Yeah, we're going to keep having these conversations and look for a lot more from the Siren. But again, Sane-ish, this podcast is going to be moving to the Siren, and you can find the Siren and the Sane-ish podcast on the SirenNetwork.com. I hope that you guys will check it out. You can find us on all socials as well. I'm very excited. We have incredible things coming. We have incredible content already up. We have new shows dropping every single day, written content, and so much more. This is the way. We have to build this. So I appreciate your support, and I really do appreciate Sam joining me today and for his partnership on the Siren.
Thank you so much for having me.